The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Yaron Brook Show. Today is Tuesday, I think. It's Tuesday, and it's already getting to the middle of August. Time is flying again after that slow March and slow April. It just seems like time is just going by very, very quickly. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. Anyway, a lot of news today, a lot of stuff going on in the world, tons of stuff. Biden chose a VP. Everybody shocked. It was a surprise pick. You know, nobody knew he would pick a woman, never mind a black woman. That was completely out of nowhere. Wow. Then we've got riots going on in Chicago. They're continuing in Portland, it turns out. And interestingly enough, connected to that, I think really interesting, is what's happening in Seattle with the chief of police has just resigned, so we'll talk about that. And then, of course, if we have time, there's, demonstrations in Lebanon trying to overturn the government there. The government has resigned, and they want the president to resign, but they don't really know what they want. They just know what they don't want. And then, even in Belarus, the last official dictatorship in Europe, where they held an election. How does election in a dictatorship? Well, the way they held the way they do that is they have an election and then they announce that the dictator got 80% of the vote, and the opposition candidate, I guess, acts shocked, objects, runs away to Lithuania, and now the demonstrations in the street, which the police are clamping down on, and many of those people will go to jail. And then finally, and in some ways, maybe most importantly, but certainly most tragically, the clampdown, the real significant clampdown continues in Hong Kong, where a very wealthy owner of a Hong Kong newspaper was arrested. A female leader of the demonstrations from a few months ago was arrested. And the Chinese are clamping down. They are arresting the opposition. They are shutting them down. The guy they arrested, the newspaper guy, is one of the, I think he's a billionaire. He's 70 years old. He was really the guy, to some extent at least, funding a lot of the demonstrations in Hong Kong. And they're accusing them of espionage, and they're under this new security law that China has imposed in Hong Kong. So really devastating news out of Hong Kong. I need to try to get somebody from Hong Kong on the show to talk about what's going on there, because it's important. I mean, Hong Kong was until recently the freest place in the world. No more, gone completely. All right, so Kamala Harris is Biden's VP. I mean, I don't think anybody's shocked by that, given that Biden has said he would pick a woman, and then he said he would pick a black woman. Although, I don't know if you noticed, but the last few days, he was, toying with the idea of picking the governor of Michigan, who's not black. And, oh my God, the storm. I mean, I guess that was one of those trial balloons that got knocked out of the air very, very quickly. So he reverted back to the choice he really didn't want to make. I don't think he wants Kamala Harris as his VP, but it's the obvious choice. Once you put yourself in the corner of having to pick a black woman, then she is probably the best of the lot. I'm really glad he didn't pick what's her name, Karen Bass, who is a real socialist and an admirer of Castro. Many of the other candidates were way to the left of Biden and way to the left of Kamala Harris, and so he picked a relative. Everything's relative these days. A relative for the modern Democratic Party, a relative centrist, a woman who the progressives kind of hate because she was tough on crime, supposedly, in California when she was Attorney General in California. And somebody who's super ambitious, and who actually so ambitious that she actually slept her way into politics. I mean, I don't know if you guys know the story, but I believe this is a true story because it comes from Willie Brown. Willie Brown wouldn't lie about stuff like this. I don't know if you know Willie Brown. Maybe you don't. If you haven't lived in California, maybe you're not aware of Willie Brown. But Willie Brown is one of the more colorful politicians in the state of California. He was for many, many, many years the Speaker of the House of the State House in California. He then was termed out when they had term limits in California. California, by the way, is proof, I think should be definitive proof, forever. The term limits don't work because California instituted term limits, I don't know, almost 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, and it's a bigger basket case since then than it was before. It's made no difference, zero difference to how awful politics are in California. So anybody who's advocating for term limits as a solution for anything, go study California and you'll see it never happened. Anyway, slick Willie Brown always wore these unbelievably expensive, tailored, colorful suits. A man who entered politics penniless and is an incredibly wealthy guy. Anyway, when Willie Brown, so he was mayor of San Francisco, and now he's retired, I guess, but when Willie Brown was Speaker of the House, he was married at the time, but he was known to have, I guess, what you'd call an open marriage, and he would often appear at parties and other places with his wife and his girlfriend, and I don't know the details. This is, but there was something going on there where he was sleeping with a variety of different women while being married, and nobody seemed to care, at least of all, it seems, his wife. And Kamala Harris, when she wanted to enter politics in California as a young woman, the way she entered politics in California was by sleeping with Willie Brown. And this is not a secret. Willie Brown actually wrote an editorial for the San Francisco Chronicle detailing this. He told the story. And in exchange for sleeping with him, he basically appointed her to some commissions, which were basically her beginning into politics. Kamala Harris, I think, and I know I'm going to get massive backlash on saying this. I know it's coming because you can't say this kind of stuff on anybody on the left. But I think she's smart, but she's a power luster. She wants power. That's all she really cares about. She's not an ideologue. She doesn't have a commitment to any set of ideas. She's on the left, but she could be anywhere as long as she believed it would give her power. She has clawed herself up to where she is today. And again, this whole sleeping with Willie Brown told the story. I wouldn't have suspected it, but that's who she is. She is, somebody says she's like Hillary. Yeah, maybe. She didn't marry her way to that power. She wasn't the woman behind the man. She was always being the woman in front and leading the charge. Maybe you have a younger generation, Hillary Clinton. But she's definitely a non-ideologue, which is good, I think, because any kind of ideology on the left is going to be horrific. She's a pragmatist. She wants to be president one day. She'll do what she needs to do to appease the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, but she'll govern. I think her tendency will be to govern from the center left, left, but more towards the center. Now the center's moved way to the left, so there is no, the center today is not the center where it was 20 years ago. The center's way to the left of where it was, but she'll govern from there if she gets into that position, and I think she has a good chance of getting in that position because if Biden drops dead, given that he's 77, and if he gets elected, he is unlikely. There's a good probability that he doesn't make it. I am not back in California. This is the same setup I've had in Puerto Rico. So you have to watch. Right? When this setup changes, that means I'm not in Puerto Rico anymore, and I might be in California. But next week I'm in California. I leave for California on Sunday. There will not be a show on Sunday, so you'll know Next week, I am in California. By the way, before I forget, don't forget to like the show. We've got a lot of people watching already, and it would be nice to get more likes, get that like number up. It helps with the algorithm. It helps us. It helps promote the show and gets more people listening who are not typical subscribers. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And, of course, you can use the Super Chat today to ask questions and to support the show. Super Chat has been incredibly lucrative lately, although YouTube is hesitant to give me any money. So far, that record-breaking day of, I think it was $2,500 we did on Super Chat, YouTube has only recognized $11 from that. So we're going to be fighting with YouTube, I think, from now on. As the Super Chat goes up, they get more suspicious, and I think they take their time clearing the money. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I will keep you updated. Anyway, this week, we've got shows today. Well, obviously, because we're doing it right now. We'll have a show on Thursday at 8 p.m. We'll have a show on Friday at 8 p.m. Friday on 8 p.m., I'll have Kira Peikoff as my guest, and we will be talking about journalism. We'll be talking about journalism. What does it mean to be objective? Is that possible? Is there objective with journalism today? Specifically, we'll be talking about science journalism. Kira is a science journalist, an editor of a science magazine. And we'll be talking about her work there and what it's like. We'll be talking about Corona in the context of science, journalism, the way government has responded, and we will be talking about we'll be talking about science generally. One of the things I want to ask about is this idea that more and more science today is not repeatable. A lot of the empirical studies that come out today are not repeated. And then, of course, Kira is a novelist, so we'll also talk about her novels. We'll give her some time to promote her novels. Okay, don't forget to like the show. I'm seeing the likes go up. That's good, but it could be even higher than that. And if you want to support the show, the best way, the most convenient way for me, the best way for me kind of long term is if you support your show on yaronbrookshow.com/support. That it's predictable. I know what's coming. And, of course, the money comes through as long as PayPal doesn't boycott me. We're golden. So far, so good with PayPal. So it is a great way to support the show. yaronbrookshow.com/support. If you don't want to use PayPal, you can support me on Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals. Somebody says, Andrew says, Harris put the for-profit college industry out of business in California. No coincidence. Anything to get the next round of power. Yes, the anti for-profit universities. It was, particularly under Obama, was a way to attain power. It was a popular agenda item, and it was very, very popular within the Obama administration, and I'm sure it would be with Biden as well. And there's many benefits politically for going after a particular institution. All right, I know you guys are already starting with the Super Chats. I will get to them, I promise, but not now, because I want to finish talking about Kamala Harris and Biden, and then move on to what I really want to talk about. The main topic I want to talk about is what I want to talk about: Chicago riots. All right. So anyway, what can I say now? The more and more I'm coming to the conclusion that the Democrats are going to blow it and that Trump is going to win again. So I would not be surprised if Trump won this election. I think the more riots you see, the more demonstrations, but really riots, the more destruction of property, the more disruption of human life, the more just chaos out there in the streets and in the cities, the more passionate Trump supporters will get, and the more undecideds will swing towards Trump, Also, every time I see Biden on television, I wonder whether he is going to be able to bring out and put out a actual coherent sentence. So as the election gets closer and he can't keep hiding in the bunker and he's actually out there doing interviews and out there doing debates. He was an okay debater. I don't think he's an awful debater, but that was last debate he did was 8 years ago. I just don't know that he is there. Now, I don't mind a president not being there. There are worse things, presidents that are there, right? In some ways, presidents not being there is actually better. But I just don't know if he's electable. Just don't know. And Trump, in spite of all the disaster that he has caused, I think people can easily overlook that and look at Biden and just vote for Trump because they can't vote for Biden, because they can't vote for anybody who would sanction the kind of riots that are going on in the streets of America right now. So we will see. I don't think Biden's losing his mind. I just think he's slow. He's 77 years old. I know people who are sharp at 77, but I also know that a lot of the people I know at 77 are starting to lose an edge. And they're starting to lose it and just get slower. And their mind might completely be there, but they just get slower. And I don't know if you want to elect that. And then, of course, there is the possibility that even if he's not senile today, he becomes senile 6 months in or whatever. And how would anybody, how would anybody know? All right, talk about riots in the streets. I don't know how many of you have followed the story in Chicago. But it truly, what has happened in Chicago over this last weekend on Sunday night and what's continuing to happen in Chicago is truly horrific. Now, this is true of since, for months now, since the demonstrations started, since the Black Lives Matter demonstrations have started, we have seen consistently, riots in Chicago, destruction of property in Chicago, mayhem in the streets of Chicago, just the thugs, taking over the streets. Jonathan Hoenig, I think, was on one of the shows, and he lives in downtown Chicago, and he was describing how he was in whatever floor his apartment is on, but down at street level, they were crushing everything. They were just slamming windows and destroying stuff, and just horrific. I would urge Jonathan and everybody else listening who lives in Chicago to get the hell out of that city. Because that city it was in trouble before this. It was a disaster zone before this. It was basically bankrupt before this. It's a city that went from being run basically by the Democratic mafia, but at least the Democratic mafia, they used to be competent and interested in some economic progress, but thoroughly corrupt. This is the dailies. Into being run by power-lusting, incompetent, crazy leftists who have really just abandoned the city to the worst elements possible and have so degraded the quality of education, have so destroyed the educational system in Chicago, which we'll get to in a minute, that what we saw on Sunday night in Chicago is to be expected. It's to be expected. I can't remember what it was. What was it, 5 years ago now, when Black Lives Matter first... just to answer that question, Derek. Just to answer that question. Man. Who do you think will win the election now that Kamala has been chosen? I said, rewind. I think it's more and more likely that it's Trump, not because Kamala. I don't think Kamala makes a difference one way or the other to the election, although she'll bring out the black vote more. I think it's because of the Democrats have moved so to the left, and there's so much rioting that I think that emboldens and motivates Trump supporters. About 5 years ago, I think it's exactly 5 years ago, when the first Black Lives Matter demonstrations and riots happened, one of the first places where you saw this was in Chicago. And I remember at the time, I was actually doing a radio show in Chicago at one of the local radio stations in Chicago. And it became evident to me what Black Lives Matter was really about because of the demonstrations in Chicago. Because the Black Lives Matter, there was a police shooting in Chicago that looked really horrific. It looked like the police really did it, and it turns out I think the cop has been prosecuted. And, this was a real police brutality, real police shot somebody dead for no good reason, and the policeman will go to jail for this. But Black Lives Matter rallied around this, and they demonstrated. And, of course, the demonstrations were not in front of the police headquarters. They were not in front of Town Hall. They were not in front of the government entities. Of course, it is a function of government. Police is a function of government. So if you're demonstrating against the police, you should be demonstrating against the government functionaries. No. Black Lives Matter chose on that day to demonstrate on the Magnificent Mile in Chicago. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever been in the Magnificent Mile in Chicago, but it's magnificent. It truly is a magnificent part of the world. It is a mile-long strip of Michigan Avenue, North Michigan, which has luxury stores, beautiful stores, skyscrapers. Some of the skyscrapers from the golden age of skyscrapers. I mean, Chicago, let me just say something about Chicago. Chicago is a magnificent city in so many respects. It has one of the most beautiful skylines, I think, in the world. It was the place where innovative and exciting and groundbreaking architecture was really, established. Frank Lloyd Wright, of course, built a lot of homes in Chicago and lived in Chicago. But many architects, one of Frank Lloyd Wright's teacher, built some of the early skyscrapers in Chicago. And there's a lot of Art Deco. There are just some beautiful, beautiful buildings in Chicago, and many of them on the Magnificent Mile. Of course, there's the Trump Tower, which is not a bad building, right there in Chicago, not far from right, I guess on the other side of the Magnificent Mile. And it's just a beautiful place. If the sun is shining, which is not that often in Chicago, and it's not too hot, the sun is shining and not too hot, then, Chicago is just this beautiful, beautiful city. It's got these condo buildings. I've been up on some of the top floors of some of the skyscrapers in Chicago on Michigan Avenue where people live, and just magnificent views, and they've got the lake there. It's just a gorgeous city. Just a gorgeous city, right? And it's kept up. I mean, they constantly are building. There's a lot of new skyscrapers. A lot of skyscrapers are nice, and it's truly a nice place. Except that the politics is insane, and the politicians have been dedicated over the last, I'd say, 15 years to destroying the place, and they're achieving that. They're succeeding. Anyway. Black Lives Matter did not go to demonstrate in front of the police. It did not go to demonstrate in front of City Hall. It did not go to demonstrate in front of any government building. They went to demonstrate in front of the luxury stores in Magnificent Mile. And they wouldn't let people go in. And they had big signs condemning capitalism. And I went, whoa, wait a minute. These people are supposed to be about police brutality, supposed to be about police brutality against blacks, supposedly against systemic racism. Among the police force, all things that I can sympathize with. I don't agree with because I don't think it's really there the way they see it, but I can sympathize with, right? I'm definitely against police brutality. But that's not their agenda. Their agenda was and is the destruction of capitalism. Their agenda is the agenda of equality, of egalitarianism, of tearing people down, of looting luxury stores. That was the agenda. It wasn't a byproduct. It wasn't they happened to be a demonstration and then some people, happen to be in front of stores. No, they went to the stores. They blocked the stores. They wouldn't let people enter. They wouldn't let them do business. They weren't smashing windows yet. And that was 4 or 5 years ago. And it was clear from that Black Lives Matter was not about police brutality. It was about an egalitarian, I won't even call it socialist because that's too nice of a word for them. The egalitarians, the nihilists who hate, and they've been taught to hate, and we'll get to that, I don't even think it's, I mean, everybody has agency, so but I don't think it's really their fault, the common person demonstrating. I think it's the teachers, the professors, the political leaders, the intellectual leaders, the people who've taught them to hate the rich, to hate success, to hate prosperity, to think that inequality is the biggest problem in the world, to believe that there's such a thing as systemic racism, which is not racism. Systemic racism is just tribalistic, deterministic racism on the part of those who hold that there is such a thing as systemic racism. No, this is a movement driven by people who are true nihilists, who are true haters. So it was evident then, and of course it's become more evident over time, that the real agenda is a nihilistic, egalitarian agenda of ripping things down, tearing things down. And the more successful, the more shiny, the more they want to rip it down. Anyway, this brings us now. We saw this during after the Floyd killing and the demonstrations after that. But what happened Monday, I think, was just, and what happened Sunday, and then what happened following it is just so indicative of where we are as a country, particularly in the major cities. So somewhere in Chicago, I don't know Chicago well enough to know where, but somewhere in Chicago, a young man was threatening people with a gun. Don't know exactly what was going on there. Police showed up. He ended up shooting at police. Police shot at him, injured him. He's in the hospital right now, and I think is being charged with attempted murder. Anyway, rumors spread that the police had just shot an unarmed black young man. Demonstrations started in the vicinity of where the shooting happened. Hundreds of people joined the demonstration, even though it was completely on false premises. Soon afterwards, through Twitter and Facebook, people organized across Chicago to head over to the Miracle Mile in Chicago. You know, they used social media to do this in order explicitly to loot and destroy. So the Magnificent Mile was hit by looters. And you can see video of this, just smashing stores, cars coming up, people getting out, smashing the store, getting the stuff, bringing it back into the car and driving off. Vans coming in with people. This is all coordinated by Twitter, Facebook. People in a store calling up their friends, cars come up, they get in the car, off they go. Police arrested about 100 people, but generally police did very little. Partially, I think they were surprised by how organized it is and by the number of people, hundreds of looters. They smashed luxury stores. They smashed the Apple store. They went to the Louis Vuitton. I think they tried to smash into a watch store, but I don't know if they were successful. They were just rampaging all over the place, but they spread out. It wasn't just Miracle Mile. It was all over the place. They went into Best Buy and slammed the Best Buy. And you can see photos. If you go online, you can see photos just horrific of just smashed stores, smashed, destruction for the sake of destruction. Police overwhelmed, not capable of managing the situation, not being able to take control of any of it. And this wasn't about anger at something. This wasn't like we're marching down the street and some kids get, overly excited and they go and they smash a stone. No, this is clearly planned. I mean, planned on the moment through Twitter. And people converged on it, loot, and get away. Armani, jewelry stores, Magnificent Mile smashed and destroyed. And think about this, a major American city. And this is not Antifa. This is not Antifa. I don't think any of these people know what Antifa is. I don't think they could spell Antifa. These are just looters. These are just people who are pissed off and they want to go break stuff and they want to steal stuff. And they've been told since they were very little that the man has it in for them, that they are the victims of capitalism, that they are being exploited by the capitalists, that those greedy bastards on Michigan Avenue, are living off of them. They've been taught since they were very little that they are victims, that they are owed, that somebody needs to give them stuff, whether it is reparations or redistribution or welfare or a higher unemployment or $15 minimum wage. They are owed stuff. And the people who owe it are the people who shop and the people who sell on Michigan Avenue. These are not people who know economics, who understand how an economy works. These are not people, and again, this has to do with education. Oh, Jack says, wait, no, it's the 5G that's making them loot. Yes, it's the Corona 5G combination that makes them do it. They've gone to school. And they turn on the television and watch the news. And you can see them and their allies all over this country. Wealth has been demonized now for decades. Prosperity, success, corporations, business has been demonized now for decades. So, why not? Why not go to these stores and steal stuff? These rich people don't need all this stuff. And it's all off their backs anyway. Because the only way people get rich, we are told, over and over and over and over again, is through exploiting the poor. Now, I'm not blaming, again, everybody's responsible for their actions. I am blaming these people. But the people responsible for this, the people really responsible for this, are people like Paul Krugman, people like Joseph Stiglitz, people like AOC, people like the teacher who put on Facebook today, a teacher in the Chicago public schools, who posted on Facebook today, it's property damage. It's a capitalist items. Calm down. This isn't looting. It's redistribution of wealth. Just calm down. It's just taking what's theirs, taking what belongs to them, taking what injustice is theirs. A teacher at a school. I blame the professors at University of Chicago, Illinois, the commentators at the Chicago TV stations and radio stations, and the teachers in these public schools that don't teach kids anything about the real world. The culture that teaches them that they're entitled. And a world that believes that CEOs should be dragged in front of Congress, left and right, and harassed for being too successful, making too much money, and making decisions that politicians don't like. You don't think these connected? You don't think it's connected that you drag CEOs in front of Congress and belittle them? Big corporations like Apple, and in an Apple store, and people go, who cares? It's just Apple. What's the big deal? It's capitalist. Even Congress doesn't like them. Why should we like them? We're just stealing a bunch of iPhones. What's the big deal? Nobody tried to defend their stores because they didn't have time. This happened all in the middle of the night on Sunday. It started at 11 p.m. Shop owners were all asleep. Did looters attempt to rob any banks? I doubt it, because to rob a bank, you'd need to break into a vault. They're not that sophisticated. Thank you, Ashley. That's very generous. You've been very supportive lately. Thank you. It's the intellectuals who stand behind. It's the intellectuals that are preaching this garbage. It's the economics professors, the economics teachers, the economics Nobel Prize laureates. Nobel Prize laureates who've been telling the world that the biggest problem is inequality. Well, these guys are solving it. Paul Krugman was marching them right into the store and saying, look, these guys are wealthier than you. Let's solve the inequality problem. Now, it's a little less civilized than Paul would like it. Paul, can I call him Paul? Paul would like to do it the civilized way. Or Elizabeth Warren can join him and do it the civilized way. I have to say I'm relieved Biden didn't choose Elizabeth Warren, although I never thought he would. But I have to say I'm relieved, because if he wins, oh my God, can you, Elizabeth Warren? Oh my God. But they want to do it the civilized way. What's the civilized way? It's not smashing windows. It's not breaking in and stealing people's stuff. No. It's passing laws that raise people's taxes to 60, 70, 80%. It's a wealth tax that just takes the money from the owners of Louis Vuitton or the buyers at Louis Vuitton. Why bother with the store? Let's just go right to who the people who buy there are and just put our hand in their checking account and take the money. Talk about robbing banks. It's our intellectual leaders and our politicians that want to rob the bank. What we have here, this is kind of a simpleton's approach to wealth redistribution and to, dealing with the inequality gap. Krugman and I mean, these people are honest, at least. They're honest because they know that the only way to reduce inequality is to steal stuff. To steal stuff. Now, Paul Krugman and Elizabeth Warren know that too. And George Stiglitz, another Nobel Prize winner in economics, all know that the only way to reduce inequality is to steal stuff. But they won't call it that. And they won't actually do the stealing. We'll have a vote. We'll put a bill together. We'll make it the law. And then it's not stealing. Then it's not stealing. Ooh, I'm making people happy because I'm attacking the left. I know, it makes people so happy when I attack the left. Right? These people are, I have to admit, I hate Elizabeth Warren, George Stiglitz, and Paul Krugman more than I hate any of these rioters. A, because they make the rioters possible. And B, because they are worse in a sense. Their theft, their thievery, their stealing is on a much grander, bigger scale. And they hide behind the rule of law, or the supposed rule of law. They hide behind the scenes and manipulate and scheme to do basically what these looters are doing. Smash windows, steal property, destroy property, take property. And by the way, the nihilistic motivation is the same. Rioters and intellectuals, same nihilistic motivation. Same motivation to destroy. Same motivation to steal. Same motivation to take. Same motivation to pull people down. But the one's more honest. They just go out there into the street and they do it. The other one couches it in all kinds of explanations and theory. And ultimately, feeds the people doing it in the street. We heard this. It's only redistribution. I actually heard it's reparations. It's reparations. Right? This school teacher said redistribution. But on Monday, Black Lives Matter held a rally, a demonstration in Chicago. No violence this time, just a demonstration. But what were they demonstrating? They were demonstrating for the release of the 100 looters that had been arrested. They should have arrested thousands of looters, but they arrested 100 looters. The police did. And they were demonstrating to have them released. Now let's be clear about Black Lives Matter. This is not an organization that is anti-police brutality. This has nothing to do with equality before the law for people of different colors. This has nothing to do with justice in any rational sense. Black Lives Matter is a front for nihilism. It's a front for economic Marxism, for socialism of all its different varieties, but really for egalitarianism. It is a front for breaking the law, destroying property, smashing stuff. And then these guys go in, and again, just like those intellectuals I talk about, and justify it, and give it credibility, and pretend that it's all cool. Again, Black Lives Matter revealing itself for what it is. They want 100 released. And they said, why is everybody making a big deal out of looting? It's just a head start on reparations. These people were all enslaved once, and the people who owned Louis Vuitton were the slave masters. No, wait a minute, that's not right. Slavery is a long time ago. None of these people were slaves. And Louis Vuitton is like a French company that I don't think owned slaves ever. But it doesn't matter. It's reparations because they don't care who it comes from as long as they're rich. They don't care who gets it as long as they're poor and black. Black Lives Matter is the worst of the worst. And this is why I don't think anybody, even people who support the idea or anti-police brutality, anti-police racism when it occurs, I don't think you should ever march under the banner of Black Lives Matter. Yes, they're racists. On top of the fact that they are egalitarian nihilists. One of the arguments made, I've seen this all over Twitter and at Black Lives Matter, is what's the big deal? All these companies have insurance. So the insurance company pays for it. It's their job to pay for stuff like this. What's the big deal? I mean, again, the ignorance, the stupidity. Well, I mean, insurance rates in Chicago are going up. Yeah, if you smash enough windows, insurance companies are not going to insure businesses in Chicago. If they will, they're going to charge a lot of money for it. Which means some businesses, some of them might happen to be owned by minorities or by women or by, rich guys, I don't know, won't open in Chicago because they can't afford the insurance. People are not going to shop in Chicago. That's going to destroy business. It's going to destroy employment. It's going to destroy everything. But again, think about the world in which we live. Who the hell needs a job? Who needs employment? Why do you need employment? The government can just write. It can print $3.7 trillion. And that's under a Republican. If it was a Democrat, we'd be at $6.7 trillion. And they just print it and they hand us checks. And if they can hand us, and we had a leading candidate and a bunch of people who supported him who thinks UBI is a good idea. We'll just print money and give it to people. Who the hell needs to work? Let's go smash those because we don't need work anyway. Why do we need shops? Who do you think pays the taxes that makes it possible to pay you? Insurance companies, stores. Who provides the capital? Well, insurance companies by buying bonds that then fund the building of factories where some of you might work. Where do you think all this stuff that you own, whatever it is, even if you're poor, comes from? Where's your job come from? Or if you're on welfare, where does the welfare check come from? It comes from the few people in this country who are still productive. And if you destroy their ability to produce, you will get poorer, not richer. Poorer. Again, please, Paul Kugren, explain this to them. But no, we get the opposite. We get bogus economics, bogus view. Property rights, who cares? They say. There's insurance. Insurance isn't property. And without property rights, there is no civilization. Once we abandon property rights, we abandon all civilization. Forget about welfare. Forget about UBI. Forget about redistribution, reparations. Because there is nobody to take it from. Because without property, we're all dirt poor. We're all scrambling for the scraps. We're all fighting each other for what's left. Without property rights, there is anarchy. The really, really ugly kind of anarchy. It's the only kind of anarchy. But for those of you who still believe in anarchy, the really, really ugly one. That's all there will be left. That is the world that you are leading us towards. And I include here the rioters in the streets, the BLM and the people who demonstrate with them, and the intellectuals who give them cover. And the intellectuals who give them cover, if there was a real hell like Dante, the author, envisions it, and you had different rungs of hell, and the more sinful you were, the deeper in hell you would be, closer to the fire, burning the most. Well, that lowest rung, the rung where you suffer the most, that rung is dedicated to the intellectuals. That rung is dedicated to the Noam Chomskys and the Paul Krugmans and the George Stiglitzes and the thousands of them at the universities. Of course, that's where, the German romantics are. That's where Marx is. That's where all these people are. And they burn. If there was hell, that's how I'd structure it. Burn. It turns out, shockingly, I was shocked by this, surprised, and it was just completely unexpected. It turns out that when the looting happened in Chicago a few months ago, people were arrested. Lots of people were arrested. It turns out that none of them were charged. It turns out that the city made the decision not to charge people who looted during the George Floyd riots, demonstrations. Well, because they sympathized with them. The city officials sympathized with the looters. And, there was passion and excitement, and things got out of hand. And so they let them go. They let him go without charging him. Didn't send him to jail. What do you think would happen? So you basically are telling looters, we're not going to charge you. You can go steal from Louis Vuitton. Go steal a Mac from the Mac store. Go steal all this property. And we're not going to charge you even if we catch you. We're not going to really try to catch you. We're going to tell the police to lay low. But then we're not even going to charge you. And the mayor Monday, yesterday, said, oh, no. Look, there is no connection, she said. There's no connection between the fact that we decided not to prosecute the looters and the looting that happened yesterday. No connection. These people, I don't know how stupid you have to be to either believe your own lies or to believe we will believe your lies. Because that is one of those whopper lies that hopefully nobody believes. And I don't think they believe it when they say it. It's so unbelievably nuts. All right. So yesterday, Monday, they didn't want another occurrence of looting. So usually what you'd think a police force would do is they would go, city officials would put SWAT teams on the street, police in full gear, ready for the looters, and maybe warn them, we might shoot you guys. We will protect property in the city of Chicago. That's what we are. We are the police. We're tough. Don't mess with us. You would think that's what they would do. But no. I mean, yes, they had some SWAT teams out. They had police in, relatively high numbers out in the streets. But what they actually did, I don't know how many of you have been to Chicago. Again, a beautiful city. It has a river that goes through the city that separates the south side, south part of downtown and the north part of downtown. The Miracle Mile is in the north part of downtown. And what they did is all the bridges on the river are drawbridges so they can open up. They opened all the drawbridges so that you couldn't drive from one part to the other part. You could probably get there if you went around, but they figured it's too much work for people. So they put all the drawbridges up. Now just think of that. I mean, I'm looking at a photo of the river and all the drawbridges raised. It's like we're waving the flag of defeat. We've given up. We've given up. We're not going to fight you. We're just going to make it hard for you to get there. And by the way, at the same time, we are going to shut down the city because nobody can drive from the north to the south. And these are busy roads. These are constantly cars traveling here. No, we're going to shut it down. Nobody gets to go anywhere. Bridges are up. You can't loot. I mean, this is the city officials in Chicago. This is what they think is an answer to looting. Where all the drawbridges up. Hey, by the way, if you haven't noticed, we're surrendering. We've given up. All clear. And we're going to shut down all life in Chicago so that a few hundred people don't loot our luxury stores. Instead of going and fighting, and we're going to allow BLM to demonstrate, and we're going to shut the city down. Oh, and talk about shutting the city down. BLM, of course, is not done. They want those 100 people released, and there's systemic racism in America, and there's just massive injustice going on, and they need to continue demonstrating, and particularly in the city of Chicago, they haven't demonstrated enough, and they need to show the commitment to demonstrating, and so they sat down with city officials, and they planned a demonstration for Saturday. So Saturday in Chicago. They don't just want any demonstration. BLM is ambitious, after all. So they want a demonstration that basically shuts down the highway. Shuts down the highway. And the city said, I mean, you'd expect. The city of Chicago, it's a major city. The highway is super busy. It's a massive place where trucks are going back and forth. Huge, important location. So what do you think the city said? Fine, we'll shut the highway down for you. And indeed, on Saturday, the highway is going to be shut down so the BLM can demonstrate. They're shutting down the city of Chicago in a different way. This time the highway. To hell with you if you want to travel somewhere. To hell with you if you're a small business owner who's got a truck who's trying to deliver goods. Tough. Don't do it on Saturday. And don't do it by trying to cross a drawbridge because they're all up because we can't have people commuting, traveling. That's bad. It turns out it's against federal law to block a highway. There are laws against this. Highways are federal property because these are interstates. Doesn't matter. Nobody's going to stop the demonstration on the highway. You're not going to see federal troops protecting the highway. It's not going to happen. Truckers, a truckers union, Small truckers, a union of small trucking companies, are suing the federal government. Because their livelihood is at stake, and they rely on these highways. So now, we're not looting. You won't see smashed windows. You won't see looters rushing into stores and taking Louis Vuitton stuff out of the store and sticking it in their car. But they'll still be looting. They'll still be destroying private property. They'll still be destroying people's livelihoods. The people who want to drive on Saturday through that highway will be prohibited from doing it. Why? Because BLM wants to demonstrate. We really need to rethink this whole demonstration thing in America. We really need to think the demonstration thing in America. It's gotten completely out of hand. It is indeed insanity. You cannot have a right to demonstrate if you're blocking the highway. You cannot have a right to demonstrate if you're disrupting people's lives. You cannot have a right to demonstrate if you're destroying property. BLM should be banned for demonstrating in Chicago. Everybody, indeed, should be banned from demonstrating in Chicago if they block highways, block streets, and incite or defend rioting. The Constitution, the right to assembly, was not meant that you can assemble at somebody else's expense. You want to assemble? Rent a stadium and assemble there. You want to demonstrate? Take one of the baseball fields. They're not playing there right now, and have a demonstration there. You want to demonstrate? Stand in front of a government property, government building. But don't block the street. If you're blocking the street, we shut you down. You can't even assemble on a sidewalk. Not if you're blocking people from engaging in their day-to-day business. You have no right to violate other people's rights. You have no right to make it impossible for other people to do their business. And yet we in this country, demonstrations, it's like free speech, but it's not. It's not. So I don't know what to tell you, but it looks like Chicago will be the first major American city in this round to crumble, to disintegrate. Now, I will give you this. If Biden gets elected, he will bail out cities like Chicago and states like Illinois. I don't think it can last very long because I think they'll run out of money very quickly. I think the economy is going to be a disaster if they actually live up to their promises in terms of stimulus packages. But Chicago, for all intents and purposes, finished. If you live there, move. And New York, somebody says New York is not far behind. I think that's right. New York is not far behind. And if you think about the coronavirus, and you think about all the businesses that have been shut down, the attitudes in big city about corona and shutting everything down, the reliance on public transportation, the need to be in crowded elevators. Who the hell needs all of that? Why do you need that? You can move to Austin, Texas, or to Dallas, or Houston's a little too humid and hot, but Florida. I mean, there are plenty of places, Tennessee. There are plenty of places around the country where you can live comfortable, amazing lives without the kind of risk that living in a major city entails. Political risk of riots, risk of property destroyed, but also risk of disease, which we are now acutely aware of. And of course, risk of politicians who at the first sign of disease shut everything down. Who the hell wants to live in a city that can be just shut down? By the way, we're almost up to 250 watching live on YouTube. 141 likes, so it would be great if you got that number up closer to 200. So if you're up there, please like. Taking super chats. I think you know, I've said this many times, the higher the super chat amount, the higher the dollar amount, the higher priority you will get on me answering your question. I've got a couple of $20 super chat questions here that I'll get to in a little bit. But let's see if we can get some bigger dollar amounts on the super chat, and I will take your question whenever. And of course, $50, $100 above that, I'll definitely answer your question pretty quickly. Beyond that, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to support the show at yaronbrookshow.com/support. Now, where's the police in all of this? And this will bring me to the Seattle story. Well, the police are basically being shut down in most of America's cities. They've been told not to act too aggressively, not to use tear gas, not to use rubber bullets, not to use the kind of means that you would use in order to, disperse a riot. They have to be really careful, and if they do need to engage with violence in order to get a suspect, there are all kinds of rules on what they can and cannot do. They haven't received the kind of training that would allow them to control pacifying a violent aggressor. I did a whole show about the need to better train police in self-defense, in pacifying an assailant. And for the most part, police are doing what they can under very, very limited conditions, in a sense with two hands tied behind their back, to try to catch the crooks, and then they get them in jail, and then the politicians release them. Remember, in Chicago, none of the people who were arrested for rioting were prosecuted. They were all let go. So how does anybody be how do you survive as a policeman? How do you do your job? You're hated and despised by almost everybody. People spit in your face. You can't really defend yourself. Whether you could be the best cop in the world, you could be paint with the brush of the worst cop in the world. Bad apples exist, and maybe there are too many of them in police, and I wouldn't be surprised because I don't know if the screening's tough enough, and as I said, I don't think they get enough training. But a few bad apples, a few bad people taint everything that you do. You fight, you try to arrest the bad guys, and then the politicians let them loose. Or the politicians justify what they do. And you are the bad guy. And then maybe during one of these demonstrations, one of your police precincts gets taken over because a politician told the police to abandon it. And you want to go in there and retake the precinct and establish the rule of law in the neighborhood. And you're told by the politicians that you can't. That there's a 6-block area in your city as a policeman that you're not allowed to patrol. You're not allowed to go into. You're not allowed to disrupt. There's an experiment in communal living going on, as if we don't know how experiments like that end. And you just have to watch as a 6-block area of your city just deteriorates into mayhem. People get shot, people get killed, and who's your job to protect? Can't do a thing because the politicians will restrain you and won't let you do it. Of course, this is what happened in Seattle, where they announced Chaz, the autonomous area. And this Chaz autonomous area took over a whole police precinct. And when violence erupted, police were not allowed to go in. And they were not allowed to retake the precinct. And the police chief, Karen Best, a woman, a black woman, kept saying, we need to retake this place. We need to establish the rule of law. This is my job. I'm a chief of police. And she was told repeatedly by the mayor and by the city council of Seattle, no, step back, step down. No, we're going to let this run. Summer of love. We're going to try this out. This is an experiment. Don't intervene. Don't do your job. And you could tell in interview after interview and interview with Chief Karen Best how frustrated she was. She wasn't allowed to do what she's trained to do. She wasn't allowed to do what she knew was right, was just to do. She had to step aside and wasn't allowed to do anything. And then when Chaz turned out to be exactly what she predicted, mayhem, violence, and everything, finally she was allowed to go back. Okay, she went back. Then, in the last week or so, behind her back, one of the most leftist city councils in America devised a new plan to defund the police. Not to completely shut it down, but to defund it, which means shrink its budget. So they negotiated without ever letting her know a new budget for the police that shrunk it. I don't have the exact number, but they cut, $4 million out of a budget of $170 million. Including, by the way, cutting her salary by over $100,000. And they came to her with that as a fait accompli, as done. She would have to cut 32 fewer patrol officers. She would have less money for recruitment, training, and specialized department. Without ever telling her this was coming, with an air of superiority, the first black female police chief, or first black ever, in Seattle's history, was told, we don't really care what you think. 30 years she's worked in the police force there. And this morning she resigned. She resigned in protest of the budget cuts. She resigned in protest for the fact that they never let her do her job. She resigned in protest for the insanity and the hostility of the city council towards the police. Now, more than that, since the Chaz fiasco, demonstrators have been demonstrating outside her home every single day, harassing her family, harassing her for doing her job. Did the city council offer to support her, to provide protection, to try to talk to the demonstrators, to move them away? No. Instead, they cut her salary. They cut her budget. They wouldn't let her do her job. In other words, this brave, and I don't know her that well, but every time I saw her on TV, I was impressed. This brave woman who has served as a police officer for 30 years, who's trying to do the best that she could in a horrible situation, was stabbed multiple times in the back by the city council members of the city she was working for. The injustice of it is just so horrific. And this is happening all over the country. Police chiefs being fired, retiring, resigning, having their arms tied behind their backs, being condemned, being ridiculed, being attacked. Now, again, there are big problems in the police, but this is not how you deal with them. Now, I know we shouldn't really engage in hope. Hope is hopeless. Hope is putting feelings above reality. But, I hope that the city of Seattle, the voters of the city of Seattle, come to their senses. That they vote the city council out, just like I hope the Minnesota in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis city council gets voted out. That they're all fired. That this mayor is kicked out. Now, of course, the funny thing is that people running to replace these city council members and these mayors are typically even further to the left than they are. But I think you have two options in places like Chicago, Minneapolis, Seattle, and I love Seattle. It's a one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Vote these bastards out or get out of that city. These cities are going to become crumbling down. Their economies are going to be devastated. They are ruled by the worst types of mindless, egalitarian nihilists. Little power lusters. And if you stay, you will suffer the consequence. And unfortunately, our whole country is going to suffer the consequences. Because if the cities go, the country's gone. Somebody says, what is the suggested per-show contribution for live viewers of Yaron? I don't know, because I don't know how valuable this is to you, but it's whatever you can afford. People give anywhere from $2 a month to $500 a month. So anywhere in that range, and then sometimes somebody will come on the show and just give $1,000 or give $2,000. We've had that in the last week or so. We've had a guy give $1,500 one day, $2,000 the next day, and then somebody in the middle gave $1,000. So a lot of different options and a lot of variety, but I appreciate everybody who supports the show. You make it possible for me to do these shows. You make it possible for me to vent and to hopefully it's a little curative for you to hear me vent for you, yell and scream about the insanity that's going on out there in the world. But it depends. I don't expect a student to pay as much as I expect somebody who has a significant amount of money. I'm trying to get to a point where I can live off of these kind of shows, particularly in an era where I can't do any public speaking because there is no venues to do public speaking anymore. But you know, we'd have to get the numbers up significantly from where we are today for me to live off of all of this. All right, let's do this. I could talk about some other issues, but let's do Super Chat instead. It's just a horror of it all, right? Let's see. I'm looking at the $20 or more if there's anything related to this exactly. I donate drinks and snacks to police to show my support. Good for you. You and anyone else could do the same. There are police support groups in every city. The local grocery stores refuse to sell bulk drinks to the police. That's ridiculous. Thank you, Bree. That's a great idea. I remember Leonard Peikoff saying at one point that the only time people should prepare for a revolution, or at least start thinking of one, is when government begins to censor ideas themselves. Otherwise, you should fight with ideas, not violence. That's right. That's what we're doing here. It's my argument always to the people who want to go out and buy guns and start a revolution. You're going to lose that revolution, and we've got a lot of work, ideological work, before we get to the point where that's important. OMG writes, people don't pay attention to local elections, councils, city boards, prosecutors, etc. Even in my small town, the city council was wacky leftist, including a representative from CARE who oversees the police. Yeah, but your rights are violated more by your local government than by the federal government. We spend so much time obsessing about who the president is, and yet the impact of a stupid mayor like the mayor of Chicago or a city council like Seattle or Minneapolis has far greater impact on your day-to-day life than the president does. And yet we pay no attention to those elections. In a sense, you should be paying more attention to the local election. Plus, you actually might have an impact on a local election. Whereas in a federal election, you have no impact. You're not going to determine who the next president is. But if you get involved in local politics, you could actually change who the local leadership is and get much more rational local leadership. Somebody says this video is a perversion of Einstein's philosophy. Well, I guess he's the expert and he knows. All right, let's see. Do you think Jorgensen will get over 5%? No. No. I don't think there's any momentum around a libertarian this year. I just don't see it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see it. I think it's Biden, Trump. Everybody's motivated around that. I think people who might vote libertarian, a lot of them are Trump supporters, or not Trump supporters, but just want to avoid having Biden or vote for him. And then there are other people that are so off-put by Trump are going to vote for Biden. And I just don't know who the people are who will vote for Jorgensen. Jorgensen is the Libertarian Party. And again, the Libertarian Party is just such a bunch of clowns. They can't get their act together and they can't do anything right. And Jorgensen has kind of done stuff like, well, I shouldn't say because I saw something she posted which I thought was horrible, but I can't remember what it was, so I won't try to guess. All right, thank you. I've been following you for a long time. I think you should do a show on India, discussing where it's headed. People are very ambitious but have no intellectual leadership. I work for Microsoft, glad to be outside of Seattle. Yeah, India is really interesting. The challenge with me in India is I don't know that much about India. I know a ton about the Middle East. I know quite a bit about Europe. I know quite a bit about South America, Brazil, places like that. I know even China and Japan and South Korea. I know very little about India and haven't been, to India. I've never been to India. What do you think about what's going on in Belarus right now? Will they be crushed like Hong Kong? Yeah, of course, yes. Well, not like Hong Kong. Worse than in Hong Kong. So, for those of you who don't know, Belarus is officially the only European country who is still run by a dictator, an unapologetic dictator. But dictators have these elections once in a while, and they win them by huge margins. So they had an election yesterday, I think, or the day before yesterday, and the dictator won by 80%. Won 80% of the vote. There's no way he got 80% of the vote. The opposition who ran a candidate was very popular. She was very popular. Anyway, they're demonstrating in the streets, the riots in the streets, and demonstrating for freedom, which is justified. And she has escaped to Lithuania because she's afraid for her family. All of this was predictable. Nobody should have thought that he would lose, that he would let himself lose. This was a rigged election from the beginning. And the authorities are going to clamp down and they're going to destroy them. The authoritarian in charge has the full backing of Putin, who is an unofficial dictator of Russia. It's not officially a dictatorship. He has the full backing of Putin, and there's no way he's going anywhere. So I don't predict that this will be a Belarusian liberation. I hope I'm wrong. Let's hope I'm wrong. But I don't think I am. All right, somebody says, what's my favorite Dostoevsky novel and why? What's your opinion of Quo Vadis? Thanks all the work for liberty. What's my favorite Dostoevsky? I think it's Crime and Punishment. I mean, I don't like Dostoevsky. It's painful to read and it's heart-wrenching, but it's intriguing how he sets up the moral conundrums and how he solves them in quotes. So I like that. Quo Vadis, I read Quo Vadis a long time ago, probably in my 20s. I mean, I really enjoyed it, but I can't remember more about it than that. Generally, I'm not good at discussing literature. Not my strong art. Of all the arts, it's not my strong one. But I definitely recommend reading Dostoevsky. He's an amazing writer. And I recommend reading Quo Vadis. I just can't talk about it because I can't remember it enough. I just remember it's good. I've seen the movie as well. Any prediction for the stock market between now and election, after the election? What can I tell you? I don't like making these predictions in public. I mean, I think that the stock market is way overvalued. I think it's insane. I think that expensive stocks are way, way ahead of themselves. By some measures, and I don't know this firsthand because by some measures, they're more expensive from a bubble perspective than they were in 1999 before the dot-com bubble imploded. I'm not making a prediction. I'm just saying I don't understand the valuations of the big, of the major indexes and why they're so expensive and why some of these stocks are trading where they're trading. It doesn't make any sense to me. I would not be surprised if we saw a major sell-off either before the election or after the election. Certainly if Biden wins, you could see a major sell-off. If Trump wins, I think you'll get a sell-off as well, because I think no matter who's president, I think it's overvalued right now. So, but I'm terrible at timing. It could still go up 100% before it sells off, for all I know, right? I doubt it, but it could. Somebody asked this as kind of a related question, so I'll take it, even though it's not a $20 one. How does the economies of major cities declining impact small towns? Most major cities are blue, and people are moving to towns that are typically purple and red. How will politics impact economics? I think you guys way overemphasize politics. Who's blue, who's red, who's this, who's that. I mean, the fact is that the most important place in the United States from a perspective of economics, and therefore from the perspective of your standard of living and quality of life, and the most productive place in the United States, the place where the innovation happens, those places are blue. Silicon Valley, Austin, Texas, Boston, they're blue. And that's where the biotech industries are. That's where high tech is. That's where all the innovation in this country happens in blue states, happens in blue areas. The thinkers, the producers, whether it's in the service industry, whether it's in the production industry, they're all based in the blue cities. I mean, put aside Dallas. You know, there are a few red cities, but there are not many. Almost all the cities are blue. And yet that's where the producers live. I mean, small town America is great, but small town America is not where the action is. It's not where the world has changed. It's not where production happens. It's not where your standard of living, quality of life go up. It's because of products and services that are created in Seattle. Seattle is where Microsoft and Amazon and hundreds of technology companies are located. Blue city, like crazy, the whole area. Silicon Valley, New York City, financial center of the world. So if the cities crumble, forget about small towns. It's a waste. Because the cities is civilization. Cities have massive networking effects. So all kind of economic and cultural reasons why cities are crucial. And if the cities decline, then the economy of the whole country declines. The country declines, the world declines. Sorry, Redmond is not Seattle. Yes, it is. It's part of Greater Seattle. Give me a break. I know it's not the same city council and everything. It's still blue, though. Redmond is not red. In spite of the name, still blue. It's just not blue nutty like Seattle. Redmond is where Microsoft is. Maybe Amazon? I'm not sure where Amazon is. But that whole area is blue. I'm not sure if that'll translate into towns as they move out. So James says, I did not mean in a negative way. I mean that blue cities can potentially create powerhouse small towns. Maybe. I just don't know because of the massive networking effects that happen in cities. There's a reason why people want to live in cities. It's a reason why there's huge millions and millions of people go to cities. There's a reason why all this creativity and production happens in cities. Because there's a massive networking effect that happens. Networking and economies of scale, constant scale. And when you move it to smaller towns, some of that will translate, but a lot of it won't. A lot of it just won't translate to that. All right. If you want to ask a question, you have to go to YouTube and you have to use the Super Chat feature. Otherwise, I can't keep track of all the different things. And by the way, don't forget to like the show. We're up to 263 people watching live on YouTube and a bunch still on Facebook. Facebook, press the like button. YouTube, press the like button. Please like the show. It helps with the algorithms. It helps expose this show to other people and so on. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm out of Super Chat questions, so I'll only take Super Chat questions that are over $20 from now on. Otherwise, I'm going to run through the Super Chat questions we have here. So if you want to ask from now on, only $20, above $20, more than $20, so $25 and above. Let's see if there's anything else. Yes, and you could, of course, support the Yaron Brook Show at yaronbrookshow.com/support, Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals. All right. I didn't mean for people to leave just because I said like the show. Like the show. Get it over 200. Should be at over 200. All right, let's go through these. Why do you despise the Mises Institute? How shall I add up the ways or the reasons? I despise the Mises Institute because they're called the Mises Institute when they should be called the Rothbard Institute. I think it's a massive injustice to Mises. Ludwig von Mises, the greatest economist who ever lived, a great human being, a great man, to have an institution dedicated to anarchy, dedicated to things like defending the South, dedicated to, in spite of being anarchist, anti-immigration, dedicated to America's always at fault, no matter in the global scale, dedicated in a sense to anti-Americanism. On a foreign policy basis. I think it should be called the Murray Rothbard Institute. And as long as it's called the Mises Institute, I think it's a massive injustice, disgusting, and I will have nothing to do with them. Now, that's one reason. The second reason is all those things I said they believed in. I will not support an organization in spite of the fact that some of the best economists in the world work for the Mises Institute. I'll say that again. Some of the best economists in the world work for the Mises Institute. In spite of that, I will not have anything to do with them because of the anarchy, because of the anti-Americanism, because in some cases of pacifism. I've seen articles at the Mises website defending pacifism, because of their defense of the Confederacy, and because of just the irrationality of their ideas across the board, except on economics. But economics is not the be-all, end-all of the world. So that is why I despise, and despise is a good term, the Mises Institute, and I will not have anything to do with people affiliated with them or directly affiliated with them. Again, they have good economics. I agree. Quote on money from no other than young intellectual Spencer Schiff. Is that Peter Schiff? I don't know who Spencer Schiff is. Nothing has value in and of itself. Value is always subjective. It extends from human mind. That's Austrian economics. Yes, nobody said something has value in and of itself because somebody gives value to it. Nothing has value in and of itself. Value is not subjective. The Austrians use subjective wrongly. They use that word in a wrong way. That's Peter's son. I didn't know Peter had an economist son. Austrians use subjective wrongly. And there was actually an essay by Rob Tarr, an objectivist economist, who shows that the better Austrians use subjective the same way that objectivists use objective when it comes to economics. All value has to be for someone, for something. So when I said gold has value in and of itself, I didn't mean literally it has value in and of itself. I said that gold has value for people, has always had value for people, in and of itself, as gold, for the people, not as money, as gold. That's what I meant. Maybe I wasn't clear enough. I don't believe in intrinsic value. I don't believe intrinsic value. There is such a thing as intrinsic value. Objectivism rejects intrinsic value. Value is objective. Objective means it needs a mind to value it objectively because of its specific characteristics. not subjectively because I feel like it. All right. So values are objective. That's what objectivism holds. And if I implied an intrinsic value to gold, then it was my mistake, and I apologize. That was a mistake. Have I seen Leonard Peikoff's 86th birthday party video? No, and I have no intention of seeing it. I'd rather see Leonard himself. Why? Oh, I got this question. Why did I copy it down twice? Who do you think will win the election now? Oh, I already answered that one. What's your opinion of bail reform? The idea that because a cash bail places an extra burden on the poor, there should be no bail at all. No, I think bail is necessary. I think it should be for poor people who don't commit violent crimes. It should be minimal, or in some cases, I think it's quite legitimate not to have bail if there's no risk of somebody fleeing and there's no risk of somebody committing a violent crime. But I think you need the tool of bail to prevent people from fleeing, and poor people can flee just like rich people, and bail should be much higher for rich people than it is for poor people. So I think bail is a legitimate tool if it's used judiciously. I don't believe you should need bail for drug crimes. In general, I don't think there are such things as drug crimes. Drugs, all the drug crimes should be legalized. That whole body of law should be scrapped, like criminal law. The mayor of Chicago wants the rioting. They let them go after arresting them. It will never stop. They have blocked Lakeshore Drive many times. Yes, I mean, maybe she does want the rioting. She's not doing much to stop it if she doesn't. If the enemy was undefinable like it was during the Civil War, do you think we'd have a war right now? I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean unidentifiable? If the enemy was identifiable, like it was during the Civil War, no, I don't think we'd have a civil war right now. Partially because I don't actually think either party is willing to fight for what they believe. Identifiable. I know, I can't read. I apologize. I just don't. I think everybody's very nonchalant about bringing out their guns to demonstrations in Michigan and going to the State House and pretending to be cool. I don't think they have the balls or the guts or the passion or the ideas or the anything, the inspiration to actually fight. And who would they fight against? I mean, even if it was identifiable, what would they be fighting over? We want Donald Trump statism. No, we want Biden statism. We want Donald Trump statism. We want Biden statism. What is there to fight about? They all agree at the end of the day. There's no, I mean, policy by policy. There's no big difference. So, this, you know, there's no ideology, right? Slavery, that's something to fight about. Independence from a foreign power that's oppressing you, that's something to fight about. And you're fighting for liberty. You're fighting for freedom. You're fighting for the Declaration of Independence, in both cases, Civil War and the War of Independence. That's something to fight about. But what's there to fight about today? We want a $3 trillion stimulus. No, we want a $1 trillion stimulus. Oh, no, well, we're willing to compromise to $2 trillion. We're not willing to compromise on $1 trillion. I mean, it's a joke. The idea that Republicans and Democrats are two extremes on different parts of the planet that disagree on everything is absurd. Yeah, they disagree on marginal issues that are not that important to anybody, and nobody's willing to fight over. I mean, they pretend that these are the biggest issues in the world. But really, I mean, yeah, the one sanctions riots right now, and the others, say they're against riots, but they're for the legal plunder. Legal plunder, both sides agree on. It's the illegal plunder. The right doesn't like illegal plunder. The left turns a blind eye to it. But they both want legal plunder. They both support legal plunder. My little Little Fish Super Chat contribution. I appreciate all Little Fish Super Chat contributions. Plugging two interesting documentaries I've heard about. One is Uncle Tom, Oral History of American Black Conservatives, and two, School Inc. on schools for profit. I haven't seen either one of them, so I can't really comment. Any thoughts on Elon Musk and the Pentagon? I haven't heard anything about Elon Musk and the Pentagon. I'll look it up. It sounds like something interesting happened between Elon Musk and the Pentagon. Jets Tom was talking about the video the Iron Man Institute put in regarding taking the PPP money being a perversion of the philosophy. I thought it was pretty consistent with their philosophy. It is. And I did a whole show about how it's consistent with the philosophy. You can find the show if you go back and I've just do PPP, Yaron Brook show, and you'll find my show about it. You can also look up on the Iron Man Institute website about why they took the PPP. It wasn't a secret. They said in advance they were going to take it. They said a month before they took it, they said they were going to take it. They explained the philosophical reasons for it. They quoted Ayn Rand about things that are similar. There was nothing mysterious about this. Everybody knew they were taking it. The board knew, the board approved it, the philosophers on the board approved it. It's completely consistent with the philosophy. You won't find an objectivist philosopher who doesn't think it was consistent. Does our government treat us worse than our founders were treated? If so, then how are they moral in fighting a war where we're not now? Oh yeah, I think our government treats us worse than the king treated the founders. I do. I don't think it's necessarily immoral to fight a war for our independence right now. I just don't see who is going to do the fighting. That is, the only way to fight a war for our freedom today would be if we understood what freedom was, if we could define it, and we were fighting for that. But if you rallied all the people who actually had an understanding of what the American system of government is and what you should be fighting for, and understanding at the level of the Founding Fathers, not of an objectivist philosopher, but the Founding Fathers, what would you get? 100 people? Maybe 1,000? Maybe all the subscribers to the Yaron Brook show, which is, we know, not true, given the comments on the chat. 20,000 people. You going to fight a revolution with 20,000 people? It's a joke. So who is going to fight this revolution? If there was enough people to fight a revolution, we could fight it. Of course, if there were enough people to fight a revolution, I'm not sure we'd need it. As long as you have free speech, and as long as you're still electing your leaders, you have an opportunity to change. And it probably doesn't make sense to start using guns yet. But it's also the case that if we fought a revolution right now, we'd lose because there are too few of us. How does the economies of major cities, oh, we talked about this, we did that. Asteroids. Asteroids have lots of precious metals. What would happen to the price of gold if we mined an asteroid and extracted a ton of it? Can it pay for GN deal? What's the GN deal? What would happen to the price of gold is it would go down. Supply increase, the price of gold would go down. In other words, you'd have a single quick bout of inflation that would then go away. It's what happens when you had a gold rush in California or a gold rush somewhere else. You had a short-lived bout of inflationary pressures where the value of gold, the prices stuff you could buy in gold, prices went up, and that's it. Then it was over. But I don't know that asteroids are full of gold. I doubt it. I did not, I answered already. Okay. I said I would do books when I get to California. I view Rand as the moral case and Mises as the calculative basis for capitalism and freedom. Would it make sense for everybody to collaborate with Mises Institute and or some other institutions like that? As I mentioned earlier, we will never collaborate with the Mises Institute. I'm happy to collaborate with Mises scholars who are not affiliated with the Mises Institute on that economic defense, the calculative, you call it. Calculative is wrong. It's just an economic defense of capitalism and freedom. So I'm happy to do that. And I think Rob Tarr, who is both an Austrian economist and an objectivist, is that perfect combination. I don't need to collaborate with anybody. I've got him. I've got it right there. I've got Rob. somebody is contributing my shoe fund again. Most people don't remember the shoe fund, but okay, last question. The difference is media is against the people. We don't want their guy to win because they will get away with everything. So, I mean, the fact is that the media is, I've said this so many times, right? You have more options of media today than ever in all of American history. There's more alternative media, anti-leftist media, anti-Democrats media than ever in all of American history. In the 1970s, you had 3 networks, ABC, CBS, NBC. That's it. No Fox. No internet. No talk radio. No talk radio. You had basically New York Times, Washington Post, major newspapers around the country, almost all of them Democratic. You had the 3 major networks, all of them leftist. And you had radio, which was mostly left. That's it. That's all you had. All you had. So, you can hold them to account. The internet can hold them to account. Talk radio can hold them to account. The Blaze can hold them to account. Fox can hold them to account. There's a million ways you can hold them to account. Does BLM all over the NBA games annoy you? Absolutely. BLM all over everything annoys me to no end. I guess I missed something from Capitalist Nick. Sorry. What about my Kamala Harris question, comparing her to power-lusting Trump for $10? No, I mean, look, I think I've articulated myself enough about Trump. I think Trump is unique. Hopefully, we'll never see anybody like him. All politicians, to some extent, are power-lusting. Trump is a unique type of power lust, a unique type of liar, a unique type of deceiver, a unique type of person who dismisses expertise and knowledge and is authoritarian in every bone in his body. He just can't get away with it. Is a lover of authoritarian dictators. Kamala Harris is conventional. She's conventional power lusting. She's bad. I don't like her, but Trump is unique in that he's established a certain character at the level of the presidency and a certain attitude towards Americans, towards America, and towards the world, which is super destructive. And literally, I cannot think of, as a president, I just think he cannot be allowed to continue. And he failed. If somebody failed, they need to be fired. Now, if the Republican Party had balls and a mind, you need both, then they would have challenged him in the primaries and they would have kicked him out. And they would run somebody else for president. But Donald Trump has been a massive failure as a president. And he needs to suffer the consequences. And Trumpism, that whole attitude, needs to be defeated because what you need, I watched something by the governor, a video of the governor of South Dakota, who's really impressive. She's quite impressive. But somebody like that has no chance of being successful within a Republican Party dominated by Trump. And the same with Nikki Haley, and the same with Ben Sass, who is way too religious for me, but anyway. And the same with anybody decent in the Republican Party has no chance. You have to get rid of Trump as the only way in which the Republican Party can be resurrected. Not because Biden's good for the country. Or Kamala Harris is good for the country. They're horrible for the country. Trump's trying to save the economy by agreeing to $1 trillion, by already doing $3.7 trillion in stimulus and another $1 trillion he's agreed to in stimulus and doing executive orders left and right. He's trying to save the U.S. economy. Give me a break. I mean, I think he would like to save the economy because it's the one way he could get reelected. I don't think he has a clue how to do it. He has no idea how to save the economy. And he won't listen to anybody who has any expertise. The only thing that interests him is how does he look and will he get reelected? Tariffs are a way to save the U.S. economy. Tariffs on aluminum from Canada. Anyway, I don't want to get into the whole Trump thing. I've done it a million times. So I don't know why you keep asking me about Trump as if I'll change my mind miraculously. You know what I think about. You know what I think about Trump, and I've articulated over and over and over again. And it's not because of he's just a power luster. I mean, that's you know, in many respects, he's less power luster than some of these other politicians. It's his character at the bottom, at the end of the day. And character matters. Huge, huge. Whew, okay, I'm done. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, share it on social media. Please like it before you leave, before you shut down. Like it. There are 30 people who haven't liked it. We can easily get this number up to 300. Those of you who listen to the show after the fact, please like the show as well. It doesn't have to be just a like people who like it. Do the same thing on Facebook. Give it a thumbs up. What else do we need to do here? Yes, don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And click the bell so you know when I'm on live. And, of course, don't forget to support the show on yaronbrookshow.com/support. And you can do the same thing on Patreon or on Subscribestar or on Locals. All right, everybody, I'll see you all on Thursday. Remember, there's a show Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday and Friday at 8 p.m. Not sure exactly when on Saturday, but Thursday, Friday, definitely going to be a show. Next week, up in the air a little bit because I'm moving to California, and I'm not sure exactly what my setup is going to be over there. So we'll figure that out next week. Bye, everybody.